Hey guys, what's up? Jersey back here again, and let's talk about this Vikings versus Raiders blowout game last Sunday. Let's talk about how the Vikings had this 20-point win. Let's start off. And let's go right off the bat, and this is just another one of those blowout wins. The Vikings have played 12 quarters this year, and the Vikings have absolutely dominated 11 out of 12 quarters this year. So let's just go straight to the box score. You go straight from the top, and you're looking at the Vikings running backs. This is where it all started, and what a change from last year, where the Vikings could not run the ball, starting with Dalvin Cook, this Dalvin Cook guy is a little bit good. 16 carries, 110 yards, 6.9 average, a touchdown, long of 25. This is what I love about Dalvin. Where Adrian Peterson on his big games, where it was, he'll give about 25 carries, get about 150 yards, and his long would become from a 60-yarder where it was a 1-yard, 2-yard run, 1-yard run, negative 1-yard run, where Dalvin consistently getting those 4 or 5-yard chunks, and that helps his offense move so well. And then Alexander Madison, who looked underwhelming in preseason, who's been absolutely phenomenal in game time in the regular season. 12 carries, 58 yards, 4.8 average, a touchdown as well, along with 21. Very similar backs, and then Mike Boone comes through with 3 carries, gets his 24-yard long, and it gets 28 yards on the day for a 9.3 average. That trio, but let's face it, mostly duo, of Dalvin Cook and Madison is so good, and this offensive line in tandem works so well in this Kubiak Stefanski offense. Love seeing it every single week. And when you rush for a team of 211 yards, you're not going to pass the ball that much. You're not going to get that many yards on the passing portion of your offense. It's just not going to happen. So Kirk Cousins is going to have a lot more like Teddy Bridgewater-like stats, because it's just what's going to happen when you're running the ball so effectively, so well, and you have the lead so often, so early. So Kirk Cousins, 15 for 21, 174 yards, 8.3 average, a touchdown, no picks. And that's going to look underwhelming to a lot of fans, and looking at the box score, yeah, you would think so. And I'm not saying he was good. I think it was still a mediocre at best performance, but this is what you're going to get when you're running the ball so effectively. 174 yards is extremely low in today's NFL, but when you run for 211, you simply do not have the time. The 15 for 21 is fantastic. That's over 70% accuracy. And when you are consistently getting chunks through the air and on the ground, this offense is going to move very well. But I do think that Cousins doesn't quite look very comfortable in this offense quite yet. I don't think he's gotten into a rhythm, and it'd be great to be able to see that, especially a confidence-building game for a quarterback before going to Chicago, which has got me terrified, but we'll talk about that in a later video. But I think Cousins was fine in this game. That's about as far as I would draw the line. I think he's passable performance, but I don't think it'd be warranting much praise. But I think criticizing this one is absolutely insane, because I think this is exactly what you will want when you're running the ball so well. It's a guy that can make a few plays, like that bomb to Thielen, and enough to keep the some drives alive. And then for the receiving, we saw some Irv Smith action. But before we talk about his receiving stats, his blocking has been way ahead of schedule. He was brought in as a project tight end. He was one of the youngest players of the draft, and he was supposed to be a raw blocking talent with a ton of receiving ability. And early on, we've seen the exact opposite. In this run-heavy offense, Irv Smith's been asked to block a lot, and he has not let down. He's been very, very good out there. And then he finally gets a chance to get some targets. He hauls all 3 targets in for 60 yards, a 20-yard average. This is what we brought Irv Smith to be on, to get on those run-blocking or really most any linebacker, but mostly those run defending linebackers, those base packages, or even safeties, and let Irv Smith run away from them, and you'll get big chunks when you target Irv, and that's so sweet to see, especially with Thielen and Diggs stretching the outside. The middle of the field's going to be open, so Irv's going to get those matchups, and he did not disappoint in this game. I hope this is a theme going forward. But Adam Thielen still had a great DA. Well, great as far as most receivers, but for Thielen and Diggs, these are going to be some underwhelming stats because they're running the ball so well. But three catches, 55 yards. He got the touchdown. He also ran a touchdown, and so Thielen had a 2-touchdown day, so can't say that was poor by any means. Then Dalvin still making plays in the passing game as well, hauling in 4 out of his 5 targets for 33 yards. So easy when he can get in the ball through Cook's hands. The offense will just move. And then Diggs, 3 for 15. You'd love to see Diggs get going, but it's just not a necessity when you're running the ball so well. And then Rudolph, 1 for 11. And this is one of those games where you get pointing the finger. Is Kyle Rudolph worth having on the roster? And that's something you have to wonder when Irv Smith's already starting to overperform a little bit. But like how well Irv Smith's been blocking, Kyle Rudolph's been phenomenal as well. He's finally turning into a great two-way tight end, a lot more like Jason Witten than he was early in his career when he was just basically a body out there when we were running. Now he's so much more physical, especially near the goal line with that little sweep run that we had to get in. It was a lot on Kyle Rudolph's shoulders, and he held up on a really good block. And I love how physical we've been seeing out of Rudolph. So both of our tight ends, way better than we were expecting, way ahead of schedule than we were expecting them blocking. And CJ Ham being a great blocker as well in this game. So great to see all the way around. So we saw some great out of our offense. On the other side, Derek Carr's stats are going to be inflated because they're behind, so they had to pass a whole lot. He had to pass 34 times, completed 27 of them, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick, and he's sacked 4 times. We'll get to those guys later when we look at the Vikings defense. And this is the type of stats that more Vikings fans want to see out of Kirk Cousins. They want to see the yards. They want to see the touchdowns. But this is not as good of a day for a quarterback because you're constantly having to throw. A lot of that is that garbage time yardage, and a lot of that was the garbage time touchdowns, and stats were poor across the board. So this is where the stats might look better than Cousins in some areas, but overall Cousins had the better day because the team had the better day. Moving on to the rushing game, Josh Jacobs has been phenomenal for the first couple weeks, and then he comes to Minnesota, only gets 10 carries for 44 yards. This is great team play by the Vikings. You run the ball better, get that early lead, take away the best part of the Raiders offense, the running back Josh Jacobs, and you shut them down where their whole team only gets 20 carries for 88 yards on the day, along with only 18. Run defense, phenomenal. Linval Joseph had himself a day. Shamar Stephen stood out. Eric Wilson had a very good game, filling in for Anthony Barr. But on the receiving end, they had the one or two the Vikings had a tough time covering was Darren Walker, who got 14 targets and got 13 receptions out of them for 134 yards, a 10.3 average. The Vikings couldn't stop him very well, but everybody else was shut down for the most part. So good to see there. Then defensively for the Vikings, like I said, Eric Wilson was really good. 11 tackles leading the team, and 2 quarterback hits, 2 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks. Eric Wilson, when he plays like this, makes some Vikings fans, me included, scratch their heads. Was Anthony Barr worth bringing back on that big contract? Would he be better off playing in New York with the Jets and having that Vikings with a little bit more salary cap wiggle room? We will have to see. Anthony Barr, of course, brings a lot more to the defense with how knowledgeable he is of the game, and Mike Zimmer always compliments him on that, so you can't disregard that. But Eric Wilson always comes in and makes some plays. a lot like what we saw the previous years out of Anthony Harris. And then also Eric Kendricks, when he is the only star caliber linebacker on the team, he comes through and makes some plays as well. Harrison Smith with the interception, Danielle Hunter, and namely Everson Griffin both had a sack. Everson Griffin's been phenomenal this year. In a year where Danielle Hunter looked like one of the best defensive players on the Vikings, maybe the best, Everson Griffin says, yo, I am back, my head's back on my shoulders, I am good, and she's showing it. He doesn't have any distractions right now, he looks so good, just playing at full speed all the time. And the Vikings ended up with 4 sacks on the day. This was a great team win, again, where we held the Raiders to only 14 points. They end the last touchdown in the fourth quarter from the Raiders. Garbage time, negligible. The Vikings dominated once again. And now we are off to Chicago. And the cherry on the cake, we bring Daniel Carlson back, who's been about 16 for 17 for the Raiders. And then he comes back to Minnesota and misses another kick. So it turns out it's just hard to kick in Minnesota. The curse continues whether or not you're still in the Vikings jersey or not. It's just going to be tough to kick. When you see the purple and gold on the other side, Daniel Carlson shanked a field goal, and then Dan Bailey made both of his. So a good win across the board, no ill feelings. We feel good and confident going into Chicago, and that will be a game preview for another day. The Vikings dominated the Raiders 34-14. Vikings fans should be happy about this one. Give me your thoughts in the comment section down below. We'll see you guys in the next Josie Vikings video. We'll see you guys then.